part 6 of the Grand Prix 3D ready control car. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies and welcome to part 6 of the Grand Prix 3D 3D printed ready control car that I've been building. So this is where we're up to. So this is a car that's been designed by Andy Cooke, and you'll be able to get one of these off his website. And you'll be able to find the website link just in the description area. So what we're up to is we're still doing the front suspension because basically I missed quite a few steps, so I went back a bit. Dashboard was done, which is sort of way past where it should have been because we still have the front uprights, the main steering, tie rods to fit, and also the disc brakes. So what we've done last time is, you can see from here, we've got the steering rack that's in place. We've got the bearing for supporting the steering column, and you may be able to see, a bit hard maybe, it's black on black, but if I want to turn the steering column from this end, you should be able to see that rack moving back and forth, and you just hear the little whirring of the gears inside the servo. Okay, and we've got the suspensions all working. Okay, so it's all working here. All right, now we've got the arms, they're all free motion. All right, let's start with the rest of the suspension here. All right, got over here the manual for suspension. Now we've done quite a few of these parts. Let me just fast forward a bit to where we are at. Okay, this is part of the bulkhead we did last time. This is the last part of that. And the bearing in the column. Okay, so that's the last part we did. That was step 12. Alright, so now we're going to start doing the front uprights. So step 13. I've got the rest of the parts in here, so let's just open this up and get those bits and pieces. Alright, so I'll get the hardware and I'll open it up from my little tray. Make sure I don't lose anything. Okay, so we're not going to put the discs on yet, so I need the uprights. So I've got uprights here. I'll just shift this side, give me a bit more working area. Okay, adapters I don't need yet. Alright, we've got uprights, we've got tie rods. I'm going to need these long screws. Alright, and then we've got 2x10s and 2x12s. Alright, so let's see. Let's check all the sizes. These will look about the same. I'll just get my ruler and I'll double check those. Okay. Oopsie. Right, so these are the 12s. So I only need 4 of those. And I'm going to need some of the 10s. That's an 8. There's a chance I've used them elsewhere. There we go, there's a 10 there. Alright, I'm going to change and let's try and use these 12s in the rest of this build. So I think I should have been paying a bit more attention earlier. I need one more of those. Okay, so we have screws. Let's see. Okay, so front uprights. We're going to be screwing these large shafts into the upright. Just enlarge that up so I can see shape. Okay, so just make sure which part is the front and the back. Alright, so let's see, are these need to be rotating? Okay, so I'm just going to screw these all the way through the uprights, and these are going to be the front axles. Alright, so we've got our 2.5mm driver here, which is a bit big, should be 2mm. 2mm, 1.5. Okay, so we'll use this for doing it from both sides. Not a very long screw, but we'll get there eventually. Alright, so this particular screw needs to be done all the way up to the end of this upright. Okay, so that's homed in. We'll just do the same for the other side. Okay, so everyone can see here, I'm guessing that we've got some bearings that are going to be pressed into the disc brakes, and they'll be rotating on this particular axle. So this particular thread doesn't need to be tight, doesn't need to rotate. Right, there we go. So that's homed in. Alright, we've got 2 axles done. And now, let's just move the ruler out of the way. It's a matter of getting the upright. Okay, so that's this side. And we'll screw it through the bottom here. Alright, so we'll just open up the screw holes to make it nice and smooth. Okay, I might as well do all the holes. That way it'll make it quicker to put it all together. Alright, so that's the lower arm, and we'll do the top arm as well. Alright, let's go ahead and put these uprights on. Alright, so you just got to pay attention to where the particular direction is on each upright. Okay, since the tie rods go on the front, just have to make sure that this particular lever point is facing the front, okay, which is going to be this one. Okay, so we'll screw from the bottom first. Spin around. Let's see. Now this one is meant to be a... This is meant to be a 10mm, so let's see how it's going to work. If it's too long, then I'll find some 10mm to replace that. So go with 1.5mm. That seems to work okay. Okay, and then we just do the same thing through the top. Now, as I've got them on, I just checked the rotation of these. I'm just feeling a little bit tight. If I do it here, it'd probably be easier to see there. It's not too bad. There's a little bit of resistance. But to ease that, I could probably drill out those holes a little bit more. But I'll just leave it the way it is for the moment, and if it does offer any problems, we can always easily take the screws out and readjust that. So let's just put it together first and see what it's like. Okay, so the top one, we're just going to be careful that we don't over tighten it. We do want a little bit of play there, but not excessive amounts because we still want this to rotate. Okay, so you can see there, moving back and forth. Alright, I think that's alright. Alright, we're going to adjust that later. Alright, so let's do the other side. Exactly the same motions. Let's screw through the bottom. And it's looking much more impressive now that I've got these uprights on rather than just having the arms flapping about. Okay, through the top. Alright, so the top again, just going to be really careful as we're screwing it in, not to go too far. If you screw it too much, it's just going to bind across the top arm, and we're not going to get some smooth rotation. Okay, so this has got fairly smooth rotation now. Okay, let's get that out. Alright, we've got both sides done. Alright, so one side feels really smooth, the other one's a little bit tight. But it may run in, so we'll leave that. And I'm guessing the next step is going to be putting on these tie rods. Okay, so let's just move that next step. Alright, so there you go, tie rods going on. Okay, from a flat side without the tiny peaks. Okay, so the tiny peaks. There's tiny little peaks on this side, totally flat on that side. So the flat side is where the head of the screw is going to go through. The little peaks, I'm assuming, are there to give it some play for rotation. Okay, so when it moves like so. Alright, so let's just put our screws through. Actually, I'll drill those out, so I need a bit of clearance. Alright, so this has got quite a bit of material in there. There we go. Alright, so we'll do every single contact point. There's one done. Okay, and that's the last hole. Alright, so if I slip the screw in, just want this to feel smooth. Okay, so it goes in and out fairly easily. That's what we want. Don't want too much play there. Alright, so that's good. So these are screwed through the bottom. So I'll spin this over. So we've got the points here where it's the actual steering rack, and then the uprights on this end. So let's pop these on. So that's the wrong size. It's 1.5 mil. I'm screwing it first into the rack. Okay, so I'm just screwing in part way, and then we'll screw it into the upright, and then once that's all held together, we'll start tightening it up. Okay, as you can see here, there's still a bit of play there. I'm going to tighten up this screw until we reduce the play, but it's still smooth to rotate. Alright, that feels alright. Okay, that's at the upright end. Now I'm going to tighten up the rack end. Same thing, we'll just move the tie rod up and down, see how much play is involved. Alright, so I've got one side done. Okay, it's looking very neat now. See there? Okay, let's do the other side. Got my screws in there. So again, we'll just make sure the screws are moving in and out those ends of the tie rod smoothly. Again, I'm just going to screw these part way so it all holds together. Okay, so tightening up against the rack. Okay, and then again, checking the play there. It's a little bit there, screw it up a little bit. Okay, pretty happy with that. And this side you can see how much play is there. So I'm going to screw this up until we reduce that. Still maintaining that it's going to rotate smoothly. Okay, so just moving this back and forth. Still a little bit there. Alright, there we go. Okay, so you might be able to see over the screen a lot easier. So we've got that all connected, so if we're spinning the rack now, see how the steering is operating the axles on each end, those uprights. Alright, exciting stuff. Okay, that's the front done. I'm guessing we're going to move on to adapters. Okay, so front brake hubs. Let's got all those bits together. We've got discs. The discs are really nice. You see the detail on those. You see the hubs, and then they're ventilated as well. We've got the hubs here, the black hubs. And then we'll need to get ourselves some other things. So there's bearings. Okay, so there's 4 flange bearings here. M3 nylons. There's those nuts with the nylon ends, so they don't vibrate free. 2 3mm shims. I'll just get my tweezers to hold those, they're pretty thin. Okay, and a whole bunch of these 4mm long countersunk screws. Okay, so these are going to be holding the hubs onto the disc brakes. Okay, so there's 4 per side. Alright, so there's 8 in total. Okay, we've got our bits. Let's see how this all goes together. Alright, so our disc brakes, we just have to make sure they're on the right way around. Okay, so there's a flat surface, and then there's a surface with a hub design in it. Okay, so what we're doing here, so we need to trim the top edge with a scalpel. Okay, and I'm assuming that's just so it allows the head of the screw to bite, because otherwise if the screw can't get in there, it won't be able to make a thread. And then sand the edges of the front disc brake and the front brake hub design to make them smooth. So I guess that's across here and across this side. Okay, because there's a little bit of a dag around the sides. It's easy to clean up. Alright, so let's just quickly trim the edges here. Let's see if the drill bit's going to work in this case. Well, I guess if you're careful with a drill bit, you can just open up the end, just so the thread can enter. Okay, I'll do that with the other disc brake as well. And we'll just check it with a screw and see if it sort of just gets those threads in there. And I think we're going to be pretty right with that. Feels okay, alright. I guess this is where we're going to sand down the surfaces. So there's a really coarse sandpaper, which I'll use for these hubs because there's quite a bit of material there. And then there's a smooth one, which I'll just use for cleaning up the ends of these discs. Okay, so I'm just going to pop here and just rotate it around a little bit. And just to smooth off the section. It's a little bit of bulging from where I opened up the holes a little bit. Alright, I think that'll be fine there, because they're reasonably smooth already. Okay, so it's just taking the dag off those. And then we'll use this coarser red paper here. We're just taking off the edges here, and smoothing the center. See how it's gone this sort of matty white colour, so that's basically where we've been sanding it. It's feeling fairly smooth. Alright, we'll clean that up with this smooth one here. Alright, so that's flat. Alright, so that's ready here. Let's do this last one. Alright, that's pretty smooth. Just clean up here. This just polishes it off a little bit. Okay, that's good. Alright, don't need this paper anymore. Pop it over here. Alright, now we need the screws to go through here. Probably easier to see the hubs there. It's 4 little holes, and these hubs are screwed onto these discs here. So it's going to look like that one there. Now I'm going to open up these holes so it's easy for these screws to go through. And then we'll leave these because that's where the thread's going to bite into. So I'll just use our little drill. Make sure these are open. Alright, so there's that one. Okay. I think we're ready to screw it all up. Okay, so we just need to be careful to put on these really tiny, actually that's the wrong size driver. These are 1.5mm, and you'll be able to see there just how small these little countersunk screws are. So just be really careful with those that you don't lose them. Now they'll need to go through these holes here and match up with the holes in the disc brake. Alright, so I'm just going to put in one as a locator, and then one on the opposite side. Now, I'm not doing these all the way up. We'll do them all up at the very end when all four are in. But that makes sure that they're all going to be aligned correctly. Because if you do one up tightly, then the holes may not align and it'll give you some problems with screwing them up. Right, so I'm going to tighten that up. Opposite. Keep on this side. Now when screwing in countersunk screws, it's very important not to apply too much pressure. Because they're angled like this, if you apply too much pressure, it's going to put force this way, and it can actually split apart. So just do this up gently until the part looks flat on the surface. Alright, so there's one disc done with the hub. Actually, I've kind of forgotten something here. I have a feeling these bearings are meant to be in there. No? Oh no, should be right there. Okay, so the bearings later. Alright. Excellent. Alright, so I'm just going to do the last one now. So again, little tiny screw. I'm going to go through the hub and then into the disc. Alright, so again we're just going to put it in loosely until we locate all the screws. So I'm putting in the opposite side one to the one I've already put in. Okay, they're all still loose. And now once this one goes in, I'm going to be doing this one up tight. Okay, so that's tight. Go across to the opposite side. Tighten that one. And then the last one. Alright, and now here we'll adjust it so that they're all tight without any gap between the hub and the disc brake. Again, paying attention not to apply too much pressure. Alright, so it's homed in. That's good. Okay, now we're on to the next step. So the next step is step 18. And we're going to be pushing in the bearings. Okay, so we've got a bearing in this side, which is the back side of the disc brake. Goes in like so. Do the same with this one. Alright, there's a nice firm fit. And then this slides onto the shaft. Alright, so that's already spinning really smoothly with just one bearing in it. And then next is another bearing. Oh, the shim. Where's the shim go? Oh, okay, so the shim is meant to go on here first. So let's put on the metal shim that goes on the shaft here. And I guess the shim is there to help protect the plastic hub against the race of the bearing. Goes on. Alright, so there we go. From there we've got the other bearing, Okay, so this is just a temporary fit, because this will probably go into the wheel, and then just a nut on the end just to hold this all together. Alright, so that's one side of the assembly finished. Okay, looking good. Alright, let's do the other side. So we're going to do shim first over the thread. Okay, disc brake, bearing. Then temporarily put no bearing in here, and then no lock nut, hold it in place. There we go, that's the front end all completed. Looks really good, so you'll probably be able to see it a lot easier now. Looks nice. Alright, looks good. Alright, I think it's complete. Yay! Which means we can move on to the next section. Alright, so this is section 3, so I guess we're moving on to section 4, which is the dashboard, which I actually went ahead of time, and dashboard's already in. So, got dashboard there, which means let's move on to, go back to the manuals here. Alright, so where are we up to now? We're on to step 5, because I already did step 4. I went ahead of myself because I forgot that I was only halfway through the front end. So that's why we've just finished the front end now. Dashboard's already in. So we're going to jump ahead to step 5, which is going to be the engine. So this is pretty exciting. So I've got the engine parts here. Let's move this there. Click on here to go to engine. All right, so there's a whole big engine bits. All right, what we're going to need. So we're going to need the bulkhead. All right, so there's the hardware pack. Let's open this up. Okay, we'll put all those bits over here. A lot of chunky bits in this bag. All right, it looks like we're going to need the big bulkhead. Okay, so let's find that bulkhead in here. Alright, so the engine details. Maybe with the engine here. Okay, so this particular version has got the motor included inside this bag. Alright. Looking good. Okay, so we've got a motor. That's there. We've got the bulkhead, which is pressed on here. It's actually been partially screwed in. This is the motor plate. We're going to need some. We've got the pinion, which I had here. Here's our pinion. We're going to need a grub screw. M3 grub screw. I remember seeing one here. It's probably in this screw bag. Yep, there it is. Let's put all these screws over here. Okay, we've got a grub screw. We've got this little end platey thing. Oh, that's a concentric motor screw insert. Okay. And then we've got so 3x8s. They'll be holding onto the motor, I think. 3x8s. And then these nylocks. Okay. Now looking at this, I wonder if this needs to come separate. Let's see. Let's fast forward a little bit. I'll probably be able to screw it all together with it all complete. So let's just leave it the way it is here. All right, let's go back to where we were. Let's see, we got all our bits together. All right, now we need to insert the lock nuts in place. All right, so you'll notice that here there's two hex-shaped holes, so therefore the lock nuts to live. All right, and we're going to use the little Allen driver trick. We'll push these in there. Oh, actually these are too big, so it's meant to be the M2s. These little tiny ones here. So we use a smaller driver for those. This will help them seat in nice and flat. All right, so that's one in. And that's the other one in. Okay, so let's see how far they go in. Okay. So they're meant to be flush. All right, so might need a little bit of a hand with some pliers. Let's grab some pliers over here. Just make sure these are flush. I guess if they're not flush, they're just going to interfere with the face of the motor. Now they're still a bit proud. Actually, I may take this off. It'll probably give me easier access to the plate. Okay, so that's the nuts there. Now if it's not going all the way because there's a little bit of dag in there, I'll just take these out and I'll clean it up a little bit with a knife. That may be the case. So I'll put a screw through the other side and press these out. Actually, I see now, they're meant to go in on an angle, so perhaps if I jiggle this around. Oh, that's better. They're meant to go up in the angle like this. All right. All right, so they're flush now. Okay, easy. Let's move to the next step. All right, preparation of the motor. All right, so we need to make sure that the motors are facing downwards because we're going to orientate them with the mounting holes. So these two mounting holes are at different spacing. Okay. Okay, so we're going to be using these, actually, which ones are we using? Okay, let's line it up. So we just want these holes to match up. What's it like with these ones? Okay, so there are different measurements there. Now, the motor mount has been designed so you can use either of these sets of holes. Now I think I'll be using the wider ones. See how that works out for us. Okay. So what we need to do is, we've got the eccentric here. And that's going to locate all these holes perfectly for the meshing on the motor. Okay, so that's how we're going to adjust the mesh, by shifting that around. But for the moment, if you've got the 19mm variant, then insert the concentric motor screw with the off-center hole to the right. Okay, so we are using the wider ones for this one, so we'll do that to start with. And then we're going to adjust this later on if we need to adjust the mesh. Okay, so that's the fit inside. That's actually quite a nice tight fit. And from this point, okay, so we've still got the motor wires at the low position, which is what we want. And then we're going to start fitting this together with the screws. Okay, so we've got 3x8s here. Alright, so this is going to use 3mm. So I'm just screwing it in partially just to align it first, and then we can match it up with the opposing hole. Okay, so that's loosely done up. You can see there that it's perfectly flat and flush against the motor plate. We don't want any angles there at all, because otherwise that's going to affect the gearing. Alright, so I'll just tighten this up. Alright, so we don't need to tighten this up fully at the moment because we're going to adjust the mesh later. So it just needs to be finger tight, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so preparation of the pinion. Okay, so we need to do a test fit onto the motor shaft. Okay, so we just want to make sure that it goes in. Looks like one side is hexed. Alright, let's see how that goes. So we probably need to use a knife here to open it up a little bit, just so you can initially get the shaft into the pinion. So it's just a little bit of adjustment here. And we're just going to do the edges, because we don't want this loose either. Okay, so this is meant to be the other way around. Let's go this way. Alright, so it is pretty tight. I don't want it too tight because otherwise we're never going to get this off. So we're just going to massage it a little bit just by trimming it. This is pretty tight. And we just keep doing this slowly. Until we're happy with how it goes in. Basically, we want this pinion to be flush later. All right, now I think I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so I'm going to put this grub screw in now. And we're not going to put it all the way in. I'm just going to start the thread first. Okay, I'll slide this on until it's flush with the end here. Okay, so I want it fairly close to the motor plate, but you don't want it touching, otherwise there's going to be some drag. And I think I'm pretty happy with the location there. Alright, so we're going to tighten up this grub screw, so we have to be very careful when doing so because we don't want it to distort the gears. I want to get it to a point where it's just touching the shaft. I guess that's when we feel the resistance. So I'm just doing it up really slowly. I can feel quite a bit of resistance now, and that's probably it. I guess we move this back and forth and see if it pops off, but it's not. I think it's grabbing hold pretty good. Actually, it's moving a little bit more. All right, I think that's it. All right, so we've got the pinion on. And that's fixed into place. All right. Okay, that was easy enough. So that's the motor onto the mount. All right, let's put that here. All right, now we need the rear bulkhead. So the rear bulkhead is already attached to the chassis. Take that off. Okay, so sections here. So we've got a design there for the wiring of the motor. I've got some, it looks like motor mounts. All right, so let's get those. Got this section here. Got these two components. Got the rollover hoops. M3 nuts. And what are these screws? So they're 2x8s. Okay, so there'll be all of these. Let's move this out of the way. Alright, so let's collect all these. How many of these do we need? We need 6 of these. Okay, got all the gear. Let's move on. Okay, so we need to side without the channel. Okay, so that's this side, the smooth side. And we're mounting up the rollover hoop. Okay, so there's this one with the cutout. So let's just ensure that all these holes are opened up. Okay, put 2 screws through. I just screw those into the bulkhead. Oh, I think those are too big. Not too big, that's too big. It's better. Alright, so I just screwed it in part way. That way we can get to the other side. Okay, so it's on, I'm just going to tighten it up now. Okay, I'm going to spin that around and we're going to put the little white cap across. Alright, so just got to pay attention to where that's going. It goes across this way. Okay, just make sure those holes are opened up.
2 screws. Okay, so that's one side. And then we'll start screwing in this side. Now this is a part of the bodywork, so this is made of the really flexible material. And again, with countersunk screws, we just make sure this is just tight, because otherwise there's a chance that it may tear through this softer material. Okay, so that's nice and tight there. Right. Okay, now we're doing the opposite side of the rollover hoop. Just open up these holes. Alright, so screws again. And these get screwed in from this end. Okay. So just do those up against this bulkhead. That feels tight. Right, there we go. This is the bulkhead finished. Okay, and then we're just going to put in these nuts. These are the 3 more nuts. Just help those in with an Allen driver. Press those in. Okay, so this is step 7 of the rear bulkhead finished. Okay, so now we're going to start with the engine block. So I've got engine block here. I've got the really long screws which we have here. So this chunky part and this chunky part, and some more screws. Oh, these are the screws we took off before. Okay, so those ones there. Okay, so we've got our engine block here. Ah, I've got the wrong nuts, so these are meant to be these smaller ones. So just pop these in here. They're going to be captured later by the end plate. Oh, which one have we got these in? Okay, so that the lock nut part of it should be facing the other way. All right, so let's get that out and I'll flip it over. All right, so we've got those in, and then the end plate goes on. Let's see, with the motor. It's all coming together now. So we see the engine there. Okay, so we've got 2 of these long screws going to go straight through the engine mount and the block. Then on the other side, I'm going to have the wires fed through this tunnel. So I guess we'll just do, it has to be 1 plug at a time because of their thickness. Alright, so they're 3. Just match up these holes. to open those up a bit by screwing it. Alright, so let's just screw these through. So do them all up tight. Alright, here we go, that's all together. So the motor wires may need a little bit of jiggling just to get them to fit nicely, but pretty much alright. Okay, so we've got that component there. Okay, which means this particular component is going to fit over all this. Again, we're going to need to feed these through. It needs to, probably need to screw those through again. Okay, so this is going to be a spacer between the dummy gearbox, I think. Oh no, the dummy gearbox will be at the other end. Okay, so this is part of the engine mount which is going to go against the bulkhead. Okay, like so, and then it's going to match up with the bulkhead here. So pay attention to where the channel is. It's going to be on this side. So smooth side is where it goes with the motor. Now again, it looks like each plug will need to go in separately because of the thickness of them. That's through. And now as we do up these screws, these will lock up against the M3 nuts that we had in there earlier, and it'll pull this all together. Okay, so I'm just doing it up to finger tight. You see there, the nuts are filled in with the thread. Alright, here we go. Alright, so that's step 10, engine bay. So I've done quite a lot with this particular session. So as you can see, we've already done the front end's all finished. We've got the uprights on and the disc brakes, and now I started work on the engine. So we've got the brushless motor in place, pinions on, bulkheads. This is where the rear suspension will be hanging off this side, and we'll progress on from here next time around. So thank you very much for joining me with this particular episode of the Grand Prix 3D build. There's the engine as we started building it up. We're going to have the all the extra details such as cam covers and such going on a bit later, but hope you've enjoyed where we've gotten to so far. It's actually looking pretty impressive at the moment, so there you go. Got a lot more length to it and more definition. Okay. So again, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments just down below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. So thanks again for joining me.